It always boggles good old BC's dome piece whenever I hear people say that the women don't draw, the women don't bring in the numbers, the women don't captivate. These all, of course, are fabrications, falsities, straight lies. But these same people will always give you numbers to fit their narrative and to fit their agenda. Like Evolution didn't bring in a good buy rate. But they failed to mention at all Stomping Grounds. Does anybody remember Stomping Grounds? The lowest buy rated pay-per-view in WWE history. Nobody wants to talk about Stomping Grounds. Nobody wants to discuss December to Dismember. Does anybody remember December to Dismember? I wouldn't blame you if you forgot about it. That's probably for the best. What about Hell in a Cell 2014? When you talk buy rates that were abysmal, Hell in a Cell 2014, but nobody wants to bring that up. You still see Hell in a Cell every year. That low buy rate did not derail Hell in a Cell, no. But Evolution gets shit on. That gets crapped on. Because it's the women. Forget the promotion that went into it, the actual fucking match card. First time it's ever been done. The time and the care and the effort from the old man in Stamford, Connecticut clearly wasn't there. And these ladies still went out there and put on a damn good show. But you won't hear that from people that just want to say Evolution didn't bring in the buy rate, but they won't bring in all the other pay-per-views that totally shit the bed with the men involved, 90% plus. They'll tell you that the women don't bring in the ratings. They'll resort back to this matchup and this matchup, but they won't tell you about Charlotte Flair and Sasha Banks and the time that they rose those numbers up, or Trish Stratus and Lita. No, they'll leave that out because it fits the narrative. They'll tell you women don't belong in the main event. Just this past year at WrestleMania, Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks gave us a better actual match than Brock Lesnar and Drew McIntyre from last year's WrestleMania. But they don't belong in a main event, my ass. Charlotte Flair and Sasha Banks inside that cell a couple years ago. I'll take that over any other men's match at that time on that pay-per-view. But the women get a special kind of disservice. A large part of that is due to the owner of one of the biggest professional wrestling company here in the United States and many countries abroad, Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Every time you think the Evolution is about to skyrocket, they get another major talent. The roster is bulked with such great female talent. McMahon will find a way to roadblock it. Not a speed bump, a roadblock. So for every great wrestler you have, McMahon is sure to find a Lana or an Eva Marie, a Dana Brooke, a Mandy Rose, bring in Lacey, bring in Tamina. That's not shade to any of them. But if you're honestly trying to build an evolution, a revolution, a badass female division, and finally put female wrestling on the map, because the talent is begging for it, the audience is there for it. But how do you expect to do that when the women's segments are constantly rotating with Lana and now Eva Marie, and you always have to have Mandy in there and Dana? And when you have talent that is substantially lower than the best that you got, you're reducing any effort that you claim to be putting into the show. And you're also reducing the interest of the fans at home or there in the arena. Pro wrestling for the females has to be more than just a pretty face. I understand Eva Marie is beautiful, and Lana, and Mandy. I get it. But it has to be more. There's beauty in some of your best fucking talents. Asuka is beautiful. I find Sasha Banks beautiful. Mickie James. I don't care if she's in her 40s or not. And by the way, just 41. Let's not get carried away. She calls herself the MILF. Your actual talent is beautiful. We don't need just a pretty face with zero talent. We don't need that. Lana was great as a manager with Rusev. Leave it at that. If you want Eva Marie to be a manager, leave it at that. If Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose and so many others need to try to get better, keep training as they are, mad props to Dana Brooke, mad props to Lana. They're always talking about how they're trying to get better and training. But on the big stage is not the time for it. Either go back to NXT or the Performance Center or go to some indie promotion via WWE's dime and on their payroll. That's fine. But learn before you get to the big dance. Too many times these talents, especially female talents, are getting to the big dance on the biggest promotion of them all here in the States, the WWE, and they're going on Raw, and they're going on SmackDown, and they're going on pay-per-views, and they're learning the craft as they go on the actual show. Meanwhile, some of the best female talents in the world cannot get a job, cannot get a spot on the roster, or even in WWE. Or you have people like Mickie James getting fired so that they can hire people like Eva Marie. This isn't a place. Raw, SmackDown, these pay-per-views is not the place to fucking learn as you go on the actual show. Know what you're doing. Have the talent before you get there. Then you just keep adding on to it. A la, in an example, Sasha Banks, who never stops training, even when she was off from WWE not too long ago. After her and Bayley dropped those tag straps to, I believe, the Iconics. And Sasha walked away for a bit. She was training non-stop with Japanese talent, trying to up her game even more. That's the type of training you don't train to become a professional wrestler while you're actually a professional wrestler in WWE on Raw and SmackDown. It's ass backwards. If I want to be a pilot, I don't just jump into to the helm at Delta. I don't just become a pilot one day with 200 people behind me on the plane and say, oh, first day on the job, but don't worry, I'm going to learn a lot today. Here we go. And we just start taking off and 200 people are like, wait, what? Learn and then you start doing it. This is WWE. You should be the best of the best. No. Asuka has to hold the hand of Lana, and now Naomi has to hold the hand of Lana. Everybody has to dumb down their standards and their skill set to appease Eva Marie's skill set. Because that's what's going to happen again when she comes back. We already saw it the first time. No amount of training is going to help those that just don't have the it factor, by the way. That's not even shade. It's just the truth. So they have to lower their skill set down. And then they look like an idiot. You know how many times I've seen Sasha Banks wrestle somebody with a fraction of her skill set? So Sasha has to dumb down her level and the match looks fucking atrocious. Sasha looks like a fucking schmuck in there. Of all people. Or I had to see Asuka do that. Even Charlotte Flair look like a complete moron because they have to dumb down their level. So when you have that situation arise where you have such great talent like Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, Ember Moon, who had to go down NXT because it's a shame the main roster had nothing for her because there was too many storylines with Lana and the Danas and the Mandys and the Lacey Evanses. So poor Ember Moon had to go down to NXT. But when you have a roster, or at least a company, if you add in NXT with Asuka and Sasha and Charlotte Ember Moon, Io Shirai. You can add in Ruby Riott. There's so much good talent, man. Now Bianca Belair. I don't really get the whole Rhea Ripley thing, but you can add her in there too. There's such great talent. But when you sprinkle in too many bad seeds, like the Eva Maries and the Lanas and all them, and they're constantly in storylines, constantly getting more TV time, when your own champions can't even get time. There was a time where the Lanas and the Lacey Evans and all them, they were getting more time than the actual champions, Sasha and Asuka. And they were your champions. And they had no storylines, no nothing. But Lana had a storyline. Remember the whole Nia Jax thing, getting sent to a table 10 times, and Lana's gonna come back for her revenge. Lacey Evans was in this big storyline with Charlotte Flair, but they couldn't give anything to Asuka, nothing to Sasha. And when you do that, see, there's a point that I'm making. Let's come full circle. When you do that, when you, the company, when you, the old bastard in Stamford, Connecticut, Mr. Vince McMahon, when you don't give your talent the time of day, or you treat it like it's secondary, when you treat that division and you throw it to the wayside and you chuck it underneath the rug, your audience is going to do the same. So I can't even place full blame on the people that say they don't draw or I don't care about the division. I don't blame them. The old bastard has not given them anything to cling on to. For every one good wrestling match between two female wrestlers that you get on a Raw or SmackDown, and you don't even get this every week, barely once a fucking month even, but for every match that you were to get something like a Sasha Banks and a Bianca Belair, or if Ember Moon was on the main roster and you got Ember versus Asuka, for instance, for every one match that Vince actually gives 7 minutes to, 7 minutes, and then you wonder why people don't care. You got two really good talents in there. You should be giving them 15 to 20 up front. Build a storyline around it even. No, Vince doesn't do any of that. He'll give two talented wrestlers, two females especially, 7 minutes, tops. That's tops, by the way. But for every 7-minute match you have with the females with two great talents, you're going to get a 5-minute segment with some promo and BS wrestling with Lana. You're going to get 3 Eva Marie vignettes and video packages. You're going to get Dana Brooke and Mandy Rose in a 6-minute match. You're going to get all of that. Instead of having the best wrestlers in the world, which is what your top organization basically in the world, WWE, not just here in the States, WWE should have the best female talent in the world in world-class storylines in the best matches possible. But instead, we dumb it down. We parade some women out there that is an absolute pretty face, and they're trying to get better. They're training. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. You blame nobody but Vince McMahon for where the women's division is in WWE. This isn't Bruce Pritchard. This isn't 617 writers. Can't even blame Triple H for this. As much as I wish that Triple H was in McMahon's ear some more, saying all the changes that need to be done in WWE, and there's a million of them, you can't blame H here, because H knows the recipe for great women's action. Down in NXT, the women are on top of the world in producing world-class matches. And they've been. I remember Emma versus Paige. Obviously, Sasha and Bayley at NXT TakeOver New York. I also remember Mickie James versus Asuka, NXT Toronto. But they've always produced great action over in NXT. Triple H knows what he's doing. But it boggles my mind when I hear people say this, and I believe that they truly believe what they're spewing. They truly believe that the women cannot draw. But yet you see the reaction to Bayley and Sasha at NXT TakeOver New York. And you see the reaction to Mickie and Asuka from Toronto. And you see the reaction from AEW Dynamite just 2 months ago with Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker. And you see just this past week, last week I should say, with Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae getting the tag straps from Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon. Basically no holds barred, whatever that match was called. It was phenomenal. And you say they don't draw, but Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa brought in almost 30,000 more viewers from the week before. The women did that. This past week with that tag team women's match in NXT. Indy Hartwell, Candice LeRae getting the tag straps from Ember Moon and Shotzi. That brought in over 25,000 viewers from the week previous. You can't just cherry pick situations where the women don't draw in your book. Because clearly, they do. You just gotta make your audience give a shit. As they did with the ladies in AEW and the ladies in NXT. You look at the main event with Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair and the reception that it got. It got a higher reception than Drew McIntyre and Brock Lesnar a year before at WrestleMania. Brock Lesnar and Drew McIntyre, Bianca and Sasha had a better match with a better reception. But they don't draw, these people say, and they actually believe it. Of course, there'll always be those that adamantly reject the concept, right? They'll say things like, they want to be treated the same, but yet they have a separate pay-per-view. Well, which is it? Well, dumbass, if you add up all of the women's TV time on an average 3-hour Raw show, it equals less than a half an hour. Think about that. That means that the women get less than 1/6 of TV time that the dudes get. Is one pay-per-view a year really gonna hurt the men's momentum or lack thereof that much? Because let's be honest, even with the men carrying over 2.5 hours of a 3-hour show, it still beyond sucks. I'd rather world-class women's athletes in there doing their thing for more than a half an hour on a really bad 3-hour show. If the other 2.5 hours plus with the dudes is gonna be this fucking bad. And mind you, of that half an hour, less than a half an hour combined, how much of that time is spent on Eva Marie packages, or Alana, or a Dana, or a Mandy? Again, it's not even trying to be shade, but it's all this time focusing on mediocre talent with a pretty face, rather than badass talent just as beautiful. Then you hear, well, if they drew, they'd get more airtime. But isn't that a catch-22? You need airtime to be able to draw, but you need to draw to get airtime. Something has to break. It's a catch-22. Which brings us back to getting less than 1/6 of an entire 3-hour show. How about give them time? And by them, I mean your actual badass, skillful talent. If you build it, they will come, like the old Field of Dreams movie. You can't possibly produce mediocre talent in subpar and even below storylines and expect people to give a shit. And then when they say, oh, the women's division sucks, it's not worth our time, you can't just turn around and go, well, see, people don't like it even when we try to give it to them. You're not giving it to them correctly. You can't parade mediocre talent out there and say, see, this is what do you mean you don't like it? Okay, we tried. Can't do it. Now, if you put your best, if you had a fucking roster with Io Shirai and Ember Moon and Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair and Charlotte Flair, yeah, even Charlotte, I give Charlotte a hard time because I hate her booking, but I know she's really good at what she does. If you had a packed house on that roster and you cut the trim, instead of firing people like Mickie James, you fired people that sucked at pro wrestling, there's a thought, and you gave that badass talented roster meaningful storylines and ample time during their match to put on the classics that they've been putting on for years. Could you imagine the audience that would bring in? People would care. Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa showed you 2 months ago people care about women's wrestling, and they will come, bringing in more viewership. Those 4 ladies in NXT 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, whatever it was, they showed you by bringing in 25,000 plus more viewers, they draw. And people will care, and that they can put on classics. Bianca and Sasha showed you they can main event a WrestleMania, and the world will not implode. In fact, it'll get a better reception than your big boys a year before. Bayley and Sasha has shown you from NXT TakeOver a few years ago that they can be in the consideration of match of the fucking year. Match of the year, 2 females. They were in that discussion. Don't give me the they can't draw shit. It's a lie. Women's wrestlers have shown you they can more than captivate. Sasha and Bayley, NXT, TakeOver New York, Asuka and Mickie James, Toronto, Thunder Rosa, Britt Baker, AEW Dynamite, Indy Hartwell, Candice LeRae, Shotzi Blackheart, Ember Moon from NXT just last week, and I can go on and on. They can draw, they can captivate, let them do what they do. But you have to put the best out there for this to work. No Eva Marie's, no Lana's, it's not shade, it's fact. They could be in WWE, have them manage, have them referee. If they're good on the mic, have them comment, whatever. But it's time to give the real talent a fucking chance, bro. Give them a chance, like a real one. Don't half-ass it. Because it allows a big chunk of your audience to say stupid shit like, they gave them a chance and they failed. That wasn't a real chance. You can't just parade Nikki Bella versus Ronda Rousey, which, by the way, that match actually delivered. But it got canned and trashed. Because how is that Evolution? How is that an Evolution-worthy main event? Or even in the discussion? You can't have Alicia Fox tagging with Mickie James to take on Trish Stratus and Lita. Because Alicia Fox in this tag team match at Evolution? You couldn't have used Trish Stratus and Lita a little bit better? It's Evolution, and clearly they can still go. You're only as good as what you're allowing yourselves to be. This is on WWE. This is on Vincent Kennedy McMahon. This isn't a situation where they gave him a chance and they failed. They never actually gave him the chance. So would BC bring back Evolution? Of course! Why would I not? WWE holds 13 pay-per-views at least every year. Think about that. There's only 12 months in a calendar year, but these dipshits find a way to add another pay-per-view or 2 every year. 1 a month is bad enough. But they find a way to confuse you even more and not know what is next. And these pay-per-views, let's be honest, they're just rematch after rematch after rematch. To get you to a pay-per-view match these days, the storyline is quite simple. Those 2 individuals just face each other every single week until they get to the pay-per-view where they face each other again. And then you'll see it for 2 or 3 pay-per-views in a row. These pay-per-views are trash these days. Is an Evolution really gonna break you? No harm, no foul. How would BC do it? Glad you asked. The Amplified Man, Professor Amplified Man, is present. Class is now in session. I would get rid of Clash of Champions in September. It's not needed. It does nothing. This past year's was utter bullshit, let's be honest. Champions were not clashing, or at least not in any relevancy. In fact, Roman Reigns and Jey Uso was the highlight of the entire event. Last I checked, Jey Uso wasn't even a champion. That just happened to be WWE, a company that never produces any good storytelling anymore. They stumbled upon something that was actually working. the cousin feud between Jay and Roman. So at an event called Clash of Champions, they had to put that shit on it. And you're telling me that pay-per-view holds meaning to you? My point is that whole pay-per-view concept has become just another WWE event. Don't fool yourself. So, it is the perfect spot to hold the next all-women's pay-per-view event, WWE Evolution 2. It just is. With all of this talk about should there be another Evolution or not, many fans saying hell yes, many fans saying hell no. Well, here's your solution. It's after SummerSlam, so this doesn't affect any everyday business for WWE whatsoever, and doesn't hurt any storylines. In fact, it gives the dudes a moment to breathe in between pay-per-views. You have SummerSlam to handle your business, a moment to breathe, and come back firing on all cylinders 2 months later at Hell in a Cell in October. SummerSlam in August, Hell in a Cell in October. It's not that hard to grasp. You don't need a pay-per-view every fucking month with everybody because you're just gonna see rematch after rematch after rematch. No care, no thought. Nothing is being invested into this shit by the company itself. So nobody wins. SummerSlam in August, Hell in a Cell in October, which leaves September to have a fun bonus event. If it's not your cup of coffee, that's cool. Don't tune in. Right? It's not that stupid. I hate you. If you don't like it, don't watch it. Right? I can't stand that. No. It's not like we're telling you don't watch WWE anymore. It's just this one bonus event that's just in September. You're going to get Hell in a Cell in 3 or 4 weeks after. Relax. But it's a bonus event. If you don't like it, just don't tune in if it's not your cup of coffee. No harm, no foul. Storylines should be being built the entire time anyway. And 1 month later, hopefully, we all get an epic build to Hell in a Cell. There's a better chance of a better pay-per-view if you allow another month to build storylines anyway. You know I'm being correct. In my words. Even if you're totally against another all-women's pay-per-view, you can't be that hard-headed not to see that everybody wins here. And for those saying Evolution 1 drew a low buy rate, I reiterate, please just stop. Because you clearly don't remember Stomping Grounds, or December to Dismember, or even Hell in a Cell 2014. And I can go on with pay-per-views that performed not up to par. Hell in a Cell 2014 drew what? 83,000 buys? Come on, bro! But we want to shit on the women for the first time ever. Which had little promotion, too. What promotion they had was utter bullshit. And then they threw out there a Ronda Rousey, Nikki Bella. I mean, again, mad props to Ronda and Nikki Bella. They went in there and did the deed. Turning chicken shit into chicken gold, I felt, man. What is it? Chicken shit into chicken salad, not chicken gold. Can a chicken turn into gold? Whatever the fuck they did. I thought it was really good with Nikki and Ronda. But when you're talking promotion, that's not going to bring a lot of people, probably. But nobody wants to take in these facts. They just want to say, oh, first time ever, not up to par, done, never again. But why? Why? They can hold this event, and it doesn't even cost the company a lot, and it allows the entire company to breathe for a minute between SummerSlam and Hell in a Cell. You know I'm being accurate here. Because the only other alternative, guys, is you're going to get a Payback or another Clash of Champions in September. In fact, last year, you remember what they did? This past year, they had Payback 1 week after SummerSlam. I'm not even making this up. I've done my research for you guys. Payback was 1 week after SummerSlam, and then 3 weeks later was Clash of Champions. And then 4 weeks later was Hell in a Cell. You're telling me that's not too much? 4 pay-per-views in 7 weeks? Come on, bro. Just saying, bro. I'm coming with facts, bro. I don't like to get in front of this camera when the red light goes on. I don't like to come in front of this camera and start spewing my own opinions. I'm trying to make this business better. The women are a big key to doing such. Just saying they don't draw is not helping shit. They're not going anywhere, and they're some of the best matches we've seen in recent years. I've already went over a bunch. And that's just the top of my dome piece. You guys can probably come up with another 20 or 30 off the top of your dome piece. We have to start utilizing the women correctly. We have to trim the fat, so to speak. Fire the ladies that need to be fired because they just are not good professional wrestlers, and let the ones that can rock, rock. Never want to see people lose their job, bro. But we just saw people losing their job a few weeks ago. And you're telling me Mickie James not only still has it, but she could have a title run right now. Mickie James is still fucking on a level that pro wrestlers today could only hope to fuck on. And she gets fired because 2 months earlier you hired Eva Marie, and then one day you woke up and said, we need to make budget cuts because we hired people like Eva Marie. Stop it. That's not helping the Evolution. That's not helping the women's division. That's not helping the ladies. That's not helping your company. That's not making it interesting for the fans. Eva comes out and we say, what? She's hot. Wow. And what do? Sit on your fucking couch with one hand down your pants and another hand in the fucking Dorito bag? I'm all for beautiful, hot ladies. To me, that's what your talented females are. Alexa Bliss isn't fucking beautiful? Sasha? Asuka? Io Shirai? Please, Io Shirai makes me fucking melt every time I see her. But I don't watch Io Shirai with my fucking hand down my pants going, wow, she's hot the whole time. No. Oh, I hope that's not how pro wrestling fans view this shit. Once that bell rings, they whoop that ass. They never actually got a chance. Don't fool yourself, brah. They never did. I think it's time we give them that fucking chance. Damn, man. Shout out to Dunkin' Donuts this morning, man. I don't know if America runs on Dunkin' like they claim, but BC certainly does, man. So, shout out, man. They made a mean coffee for the Amplified Man today. So BC told you when the next Evolution should be held, right? Perfectly tucked in between SummerSlam and Hell in a Cell in that September spot. So now we discuss, what should the card concept be? Well, for BC, this is so simple. It's called Evolution. Show Evolution! Showcase your big women stars from yesteryear that can still put on a good match, obviously. We don't want to fucking wheel anybody out. And put them up against the females that are spearheading the women's wrestling of today for WWE. A night of big-time fantasy and even dream matches. Or at least some of the card. A huge double main event, for instance. Finally, Sasha Banks versus Trish Stratus, one-on-one. Don't tell me that wouldn't draw, because again, I come with facts. You guys remember a couple years ago during the Royal Rumble, there was a brief stare down between Trish and Sasha, and the crowd was electric. Now picture that if you had a little bit of a build and a big fucking matchup between Trish and Sasha. Whether it's the main event or not, that is pay-per-view worthy. That's going to make people like BC turn their fucking head and go, all right, I'm in. And on the flip side, Becky Lynch versus Stephanie McMahon. That's right. BC, what? Stephanie versus Becky? That's right. Becky Lynch comes back, which is inevitable. She just re-signed with WWE. We knew that was going to happen. There's not enough time to really thrust her into a title immediately. And I always call it down the line fair with you guys, do I not? If I'm going to say that Rhea Ripley should not have just jumped onto the Raw brand and got a match with Asuka and got the title, then I'm going to say the same thing for top stars like Becky Lynch. I'm always going to be fair and consistent. Becky Lynch should not be coming back and just getting a championship. So here's a fun storyline where she starts beating the shit out of some ladies. It's the Becky of old. She's got that attitude. Stephanie McMahon has to come back and say, hey, enough. Watch it. You're starting to cross the line and we can't have that here. So Becky Lynch is like, well, if you don't want me here, make me leave. And Stephanie's like, excuse me? And Becky says, let's have a match. If you beat me, Steph, I'll be out of your hair. I know you never liked me anyway. I'll be out. You beat me in one match. But if I win, you can't stick your nose into my business ever again. That's a tall stipulation to live up to for both ladies. A lot on the line for them. That could be a fun storyline and a good way to introduce Becky Lynch back into WWE. Taking on the Authority. There you go. Becky Lynch, Stephanie McMahon on the same card of Sasha and Trish, on the same card that I would have Bayley taking on Lita. Could you just picture the matchup if you gave them 15 minutes? That's it. I'm not even asking or begging for 20. 15, Bayley and Lita. And everything I'm saying here is not out of the box. This is what WWE could produce with talent from yesteryear that can still go in the ring. I'm not asking for miracles like bring AJ Lee back. That would be great. I would have somebody like AJ Lee on this card, but I'm being realistic. I'm giving you matches that they could definitely do. And you could protect. Lita's had neck issues in the past. You could literally that's what I mean. You think Bayley and her wouldn't have a great match working around certain injuries? Edge talks about how they do it all the time with the men. Women who know what they're doing can do the same thing, and Bayley knows what she's doing, and Lita knows what she's doing. Round the card out, man. Those are just some of the top tier matches. What about Alundra Blaze versus Charlotte Flair? You could do a match like that. Alundra is doing 5Ks, guys, riding monster trucks and still training to this very day. Alundra Blaze can whoop 90% of the roster today. Don't think she can't go at, 57 years old? Alundra is an ass kicker. Again, she just ran another 5K. Alundra and Charlotte. Yesteryear meets today. Fuck. We'll even give Vince his precious schmaz match, right? Because I want to be realistic on this card. So you know Vince would have a schmaz. Okay, yesteryear meets today, man. Why not have Melina, Michelle McCool, Mickie James, and Jacqueline taking on Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, Candice LeRae, and Indy Hartwell. A couple of NXT talents up in there. I mean, this is top of my dome piece. I'm just literally using the tag champions right now. Tag champions for the main roster, Shayna and Nia, so they have to be utilized. And tag champions in NXT, Indy Hartwell, Candice LeRae. So obviously they should be utilized, and you should have some NXT talent in there. Obviously, champions would be changed by September, so this match would alter. But if it was to be booked right now, you could use all your tag champions and have them take on the returning Melina. Melina would be... People would love to see Melina. I'm one of them. Michelle McCool, Mrs. Undertaker, she can still rock out a match, bro. You bring in the badass Jacqueline and bring back Mickie James to show that there's no hard feelings and Mickie can still rock it and you're giving her the time of day and you haven't ostracized her and thrown her into obscurity. You bring back Mickie James. Show that you're the bigger fucking company. There's a schmaz match. Imagine those four staring off. Of course, if you don't want a full night of nostalgia and fantasy matches that come to life, you can have a couple of big current superstar matches. Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley. Champion versus champion. Right? Substitute Clash of Champions and still get a champion versus champion match. Bianca versus Rhea. Or whoever the champions are by September. But there's a match that you could promote. What about NXT talent Io Shirai versus Asuka in an exhibition match? Io versus Asuka! You're telling me that's not going to sell with a multitude of different wrestling fans? This is a match we've been waiting to see. Can't wait to see. We don't need to see them in a tag team just because it's Japanese talent, because that's what Vince likes to do. He likes to group you according to what you are, and you become a tag team. If you're Spanish, you gotta go with the other Spanish guy. If you're black, you gotta go with the other black guy. If you're a redneck, you go with the other redneck. If you're Japanese talent, you go with the other Japanese talent. No. But we do. We would love to see Io and Asuka. Well, what about if you had a match full of the matches I just said, and on that same card you had an exhibition match? 20 minutes if you were to give Io versus Asuka. Bro, I get excited just fantasy booking this shit. There is a realistic Evolution Part 2. Where you are using stars from yesteryear, the stars of today, and you are literally showcasing the evolution. Where we are today, paved. The path was paved thanks to those superstars of yesteryear, and the superstars of today are making sure that that path, it's prestigious, and it gets cared for. And they honor that path that has been paved. I just booked Evolution realistically. This isn't just some fucking fantasy that could never happen. I'm not bringing people back like AJ Lee and shit and Sable as special ring announcer. No, I want JoJo back, first of all. I miss JoJo. Sable on commentary or some shit. Sonny somehow gets out of prison and is fucking wrestling. I'm not being unrealistic here. Man, the sun just came fucking booming out, by the way. Damn. Good thing I got the fucking Oakleys on, baby. I got a collection of Oakleys. You guys, anybody own Oakleys? Best sunglasses. You gotta take a lot of care of them. They're not cheap, but man, these Oakleys, man. That sun came booming out. Any normal pair of glasses, I'm telling you right now, I'd be like, guys, where are ya? But that's what I got to talk about, man. Evolution, I'm down with it. I know that is probably not a popular opinion in today's wrestling or with today's wrestling fan, right? It's easy to just shit on the women for justified reasons because Vince McMahon himself shits on the division. But when you look at the facts that I dropped, they actually do draw. They actually can pull in ratings and viewers. They actually do put on classics. So if you gave them the time of day and actually put in effort and shit, could you imagine what they could do for you on a little fun bonus pay-per-view like Evolution 2? It wouldn't hurt anyone. You don't have to tune in if it's not your cup of coffee. But it would do wonders for everybody involved. And for those that do want to tune into Evolution 2, like yours truly, BC Amplified, I'm sure we get a fucking awesome show. I just ask that you give us an awesome show. You can't have an Evolution 2 and have Eva Marie in a match, and then Lana in another match, and then Mandy and Dana Brooke in a tag match, and Tamina Snuka in a fucking 12-minute match. And then when Evolution goes off the air, and everyone's like, well, that was fucking subpar, and then go, oh, see, we gave it another chance. They fell on their face again. This is why we don't do women's pay-per-views. They don't work. Well, look at the shit you put out there, bro. You can't do something half-ass and then expect immaculate results. If you put out that fucking card and that shit fell on its face, I'll reassess and make a different video. No question. I'll take my fucking L and we'll see where it all went wrong. But I'm telling you, based on my research, my facts, the history that I went back and obtained, that shit works. What Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa did on Dynamite, and what those four ladies, Ember and Shotzi and the gang, did 2 weeks ago for NXT. What Belair and Sasha did at WrestleMania, or Bayley and Sasha at NXT TakeOver New York, and Mickie James and Asuka in Toronto, and you can go on and on, even way back with Paige and Emma in NXT. There's matches that can absolutely captivate because the ladies do. Care for it. Allow them the real chance. Give them a real chance this next time. Not a half-ass chance, and don't use mediocre talent. Nobody should be dumbed down. Stay at home, pay them if you want, but let the big gals put on the big gal panties and let them rock. BC Amplified. For now, you know what we gotta do. Smash the coffees, whoop the day's ass. Think, be, live, amplified. And for now, check you later.